Orks is never defeated in battle. If we win, we win. If we die fighting, so it don't count. If we run for it, we don't die neither, cause we comes back for another go, say? Normally I would have a joke in between the quote and the rest of the video, but considering that we're talking about the orcs, I don't think that's necessary. Hello everyone, NK here, and we are back with another lore video. Today, we're going to be talking about everyone's favorite orcs. Orcs are another playable race within the 40k galaxy. But what makes them different from all the other races is the fact that they actually enjoy living in the 40k galaxy. Why? Because orcs love fighting. They need fighting like we need food and water. And they base their entire life on fighting. The orc hierarchy is extremely simple. Biggest and strongest orc is in charge. This orc that's in charge is called a war boss. And it's the war boss's job to lead the other orcs into a good and proper fight. The origins of the orcs date all the way back to the War on Heaven. The orcs were another creation of the old ones. You know, those weird space frog things. Except the orcs were originally called the Krork, and they were different compared to their modern day counterparts. They were actually intelligent. Well, intelligent when it comes to fighting. Just like the Eldar, the Krorks were also created to counter the Old One's enemies during the war. And Krorks were ridiculously big and strong. Like, just imagine a Primarch, you know? Yeah, a Krork would consider a Primarch to be a standard foot soldier. Yeah. oh boy. However, after the war, the eradication of the Old Ones, and, you know, the Necrons going to sleep, the Krorks somehow devolved. I mean, we still don't know the full details, but the Krorks devolved and became, you know, the Orks. Savage, brutish, kinda stupid, but not really. The Orks worship two gods, Gork and Mork. Gork is brutal but cunning, while Mork is cunning but brutal. Or wait, is it Mork that's brutal but cunning and Gork that's cunning but brutal? Doesn't matter. Anyways, orcs are actually split up into 4 different species. First, there are the squigs. The squigs are a lot different compared to the normal orcs due to the fact that they're not green, they're red. And squigs are basically food, farm animals, pets, and in some cases, hair for orcs. Then there are the snotlings. Snotlings are more of akin to goblins. Snotlings are used as servants, sometimes food, auxiliary support, and even ammo for orcs. Yeah, that's rough, buddy. Then there are the Gretchens or Grots. Gretchens are similar to Snotlings, except they primarily do all the menial tasks that orcs themselves don't want to do. And last but not least are the orcs themselves. Them being the most dominant species of orcoids, they are in charge of everything. Orcs are basically a combination of fungi and animal. They reproduce by spreading out fungal spores that grow into orcs. When orcs are born, they have an innate knowledge about which clan they belong to, and some orcs are born special. What I mean by that is that some orcs are born with an innate knowledge of something. These orcs are called Ob Boys, and there are 4 types of them. There are the Mech Boys, which are the engineers of Orc Society. Pain Boys are the doctors of Orc Society, but trust me, you'd rather jump in front of a tank shell than be patched up by a Pain Boy. Weird Boys are essentially the Psychers of Orc Society, and yeah, you don't want to be anywhere near them. Rodherts are basically the squig and snotling trainers of Orc Society. They're in charge of looking after, you guessed it, squigs, snotlings, and make sure they're on their best behavior. Believe it or not, orcs actually have a functioning economy and they use teeth as currency. Why teeth? Well, it's because it's a steady supply and it grows at a predictable rate. So if you're an orc and you're broke, just find the nearest get, punch them in the face, take their teeth, and bam! You got in your teeth for a brand new shooter. And now we're going to talk about the Wa. What is the Wa? Well, the Wa is essentially a psychic phenomenon that happens to orcs whenever they're all gathered together. The Wa has 2 properties. The first property is that the orcs become slightly more organized. Slightly. And they put their main focus on building ships, vehicles, and weaponry to set out across the galaxy to find a good fight. You see, orcs like to fight anything and everything that moves, including each other. So when the biggest orc in the area conquers all the other orcs, they will prepare and set out for a wall. The second property of the wall is the power of belief. I know, it's weird, but let me explain. Now, how orc technology works is that it's all pieces of scrap metal that's been put together and held together by the power of belief. I'm serious. If the orcs collectively believe in something, then the Wa energy will manipulate reality to make that something come true. Take their weapons for example. Orc weapons are just, pieces of junk put together into the shape of a gun. But because the orcs believe that it'll actually fire like a gun, it does. Oh, there's this one really funny story where an Imperial Guard regiment was fighting against orcs and they were running low on ammo. So their commander got the bright idea of pretending that he's still shooting, and because of how the wall works, the orcs were actually acting like they were getting shot. It was funny. The power of the wall also travels to colors. Orcs believe that certain colors have certain properties. Black means tougher to kill. Red means faster. Yellow means wealth or bigger explosions. Blue means lucky, and purple means sneaky. And because the orcs actually believe that these colors have these properties, well, they actually do have these properties. Next, we get to the orc clans. Now, there are a bunch of orc clans, but we'll mostly be focusing on 6, technically 7 of them. First, we start with the Goths. Now, the Goths are the orkiest of orcs. They are the biggest, they are the meanest, they are the greenest of orcs you can think of. They wear black armor, which means they are tougher to kill. And while they do prefer to travel on foot, sometimes they will use trucks to help them get them into battle faster. They are the type of orcs that will charge up at you and cut you up with them choppers. Sorry about that. Next are the Evil Sons. While the Goths prefer traveling on foot, the Evil Sons will ride their way into battle using the fastest vehicles they can get their hands on. The primary color of the Evil Sons is, well, red, since red goes faster. And all our vehicles have a big red button that just makes them go speedy. Orcs within the Evil Sons have an absolute love for speed, but sometimes their members can get too addicted to it and end up becoming speed freaks. Speed freaks being orcs that worship speed as if it was Gork and Mork themselves. Take note, not all speed freaks are from the Evil Sons tribe, but most of them are. Next up are the Bad Moons. The Bad Moons are the richest of the orcs. How are they rich per se? Well, the Bad Moons have a little quirk where their teeth grows back faster. They can afford the shininess and flashiest of weapons and armor. The Bad Moons are the loudest of orcs. As to be expected, the Bad Moon's primary color is yellow, to show wealth and explosions. Some war bosses keep some Bad Moon's boys with them to punch them every once in a while and collect their teeth. Next, we get to the Death Skulls. The Death Skulls are hated by other orcs because they are a bunch of thieving gits. The Death Skulls wear the color blue since, blue is lucky. And normally after a fight, or sometimes even during a fight, they would scavenge and steal anything useful, and either keep it for themselves, sell it off to some other orcs, or give it over to the mech boys and see what they can make. Now, among the Death Skulls, ownership of property works like this. Some git has something you like, you go up to them, take the thing, and if they have a problem with it, make sure they wake up in a few hours with a fist-sized dent in their skull. Another orc clan that isn't hated as much as the Death Skulls are the Blood Axes. The Blood Axes are strange among orcs due to the fact that they use human tactics. They would dress up like enemies, cut enemy supply lines, and even set in their own stealth orcs called commandos. Fun fact, commandos aren't just the sneakiest of orcs, they're also smart enough to read. Another thing that's almost unique to the Blood Axes is that they actually work with humies sometimes. And what I mean by that is that an inquisitor or some rogue trader can hire their services, and they will receive payments in the form of weapons, vehicles, or whatever. Although sometimes the Blood Axes would turn their newly given toys onto their employers. And then there are the Snakebites. The Snakebites are considered to be the weirdest of the orc clans, due to the fact that they reject modernity and embrace tradition. They don't like all that fancy smanchy tech, though they will occasionally use it. They refuse to use any shooters that aren't old and rusted. They mostly use spears and ride on squigs. And the reason why they're called the snakebites is because they have a tradition where new snakebite orcs would be bitten by the most dangerous and venomous snakes in the galaxy. So yeah, if a planet has a huge number of venomous snakes, chances are the snakebites are there. Similar to the evil sons and speed freaks, there's also a subculture of orcs known as the beast snagas. The beast snagas are mostly made up of runt herds and snakebite orcs. Though not every beast snaga is a snakebite or a runt herd. Just orcs that don't like technology but really like squigs. And then lastly, we're going to talk about the freebooters. The freebooters aren't technically a clan. Sometimes an orc from a clan would do something and get kicked out, or they would leave because they feel like they don't belong with the clan. So they join the freebooters. Orc pirates that go around raiding, looting, killing, all that stuff. And they basically reject most things of orc society, with the exception of, the things I just said. And they are led by a captain. Not necessarily the biggest orc in charge, but definitely the most cunning. Similar to the Blood Axes, the freebooters will also work for anyone that pays them. They accept payment in the form of teeth, loot, weapons, and on one occasion, an Inquisitor's hat. There have been a few moments where orcs actually get smarter. The intelligence of the orcs is dependent on how large a Waaagh is. So far, the biggest Waaagh in orc history was the War of the Beast, which we'll talk about on a different day, but let's just say that the orcs were smart enough to use diplomacy. Yeah. And the second biggest Waaagh is the current one, led by Gatskul Mag Urak Thraka. Yeah, it took me forever to try to find a way to pronounce that. Orcs are indeed fascinating and fun. I've never met anyone in my entire life who doesn't like orcs. And if there's anyone out there who genuinely doesn't like orcs, well then they should be burned at the stake. As fun as orcs are, they were created by the old ones for a purpose. And that purpose was to fight the servants of their greatest enemy. But we'll have to talk about that next time. Anyways, that's it for today. I've been NK. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye.